We're making another ramble today. The Ruinous Powers Greenlight poll block has been updated. Jagex has said a few words about it. So let's just get right into it right away, guys. This is the fastest load up ever. All right. Ruinous Powers Greenlight poll block March 6th update from the team. We're back from reading up on all things you've shared about the Ruinous Powers over the weekend. We'll outline some of the key points we've observed below and detail some of our own thoughts. Most importantly, we've included a very short survey that you can take a part in by clicking the button at the end of this update. This survey aims to give us a little extra, slightly more quantitative perspective on how you feel about our initial proposal, which we'll use to make some tweaks to a handful of prayers tomorrow, Tuesday, March 7th, before polling whether or not this initial set of prayers are to be added to a beta before being locked in via a subsequent poll after the beta. Your feedback. Let's start with a rapid-fire list of a handful of points we've seen crop up. Some players felt that Gambit and Vindication combined would result in a frustrating playstyle of always camping extremely low hit points to be able to extract most value out of Ruinous Power's high damage potential. So, for those that don't remember what Gambit and Vindication are, let's just go down and reconfirm what they are. So, Gambit increases your accuracy with all combat styles by 1% per 3% missing HP. So, basically, all accuracy would shoot up to like 30%. So it's not strength at all, but accuracy is insane. So if you wanted to camp 1 HP all the time, it really does feel like you would kind of almost need to camp that, which is fine. You know, risk versus reward, it makes total sense, but you're going to have this strange obligation to always just be at low HP all the time. And then Vindication was, that was at the bottom, wasn't it? Yeah. When reduced below 10% of your maximum HP without taking lethal damage, Vindication will heal you for 15% of your prayer level, draining 100% of your remaining prayer points. So upon activation, grants 10% bonus damage on your next attack. So I guess people would be... I can't really see me using this in conjunction with Gambit, but yeah, let me make sure that was... Yeah, it was Vindication. Interesting. Gambit, I can totally understand. Vindication, I might be a bit confused on it. It seems like a redemption prayer, but just gives you a little boost afterward. Is that just going to be like a recurring thing? Just keep vindicating? Whatever. But that makes sense. Many players felt that the protection prayers offered in the form of Dampen and Absorb prayers were too weak, citing chip damage as a frustrating gameplay element where it currently exists, or that the prayer drain when using Absorb would be so immense that it's hard to benefit from. Yeah, I'm glad they brought up the chip damage thing. So Dampen and Absorb, let's just take another look at those once again. So, oops. Where's Dampen at? Was Dampen its own? Okay, there we are. So this is the reduced, so this is the chip damage Dampen. And Absorb reduces damage from the appropriate style by 100%, but you are getting a little bit of prayer drained from that. So, yeah, I mean, I can understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to add a balance to this prayer book. So it's not just like the go-to prayer book at all times now. So I understand they're trying to have some negatives to it, but like, it's so tough. Like, I don't envy the team's position to try to make a new prayer book. It's a lot. Some players raised concerns that Rebuke's 25% increase in damage taken is too high to be worth the risk in some scenarios, especially PvP. So Rebuke, let's look at that. 25% increased damage taken? Really? I don't remember that exactly. Rebuke reflects 15% of damage taken, but increases damage taken by 25%. Jesus, yeah, and that's with an over. This is an overhead, so you can't have protection prayers on as well. If a boss would hit you for a 60, instead it'll deal 75. Yeah, holy shit. It's still a cool idea for a prayer, I understand, but again, it just comes down to like just taking a beating for a little bit of extra damage. I don't know. I understand that's sort of the idea of the prayer book. A handful of players felt that the self-smite inflicted by Ruinous Smite alongside the extra prayer drain when using overprotection would be off-putting, for people less seasoned in PvP, as well as other potentially adverse effects, such as ragging with 2 valuable items as opposed to 1. Yeah, so Ruinous Smite was the one where... Let's just take a look at these. Overprotection and Ruinous Smite. So Ruinous Smite reduces your opponent's and your own prayer points by 33% of damage dealt. That's a cool prayer. I kind of like it. Just super powerful, but it's going to hurt you too. And then, what was the other one they said? Ruinous Smite and Overprotection. Protect 2 items on death, but drains prayer by 25% of damage taken. Yeah. Interesting. I don't really feel... I don't have too many concerns with those, mainly because it's just PvP related, so it's just not in my scene. All right. So some players felt that the prayers on offer were too weak to be a reward from a Grandmaster quest. Interesting. I don't know if they're too weak. They just seem to have so many downsides. Some players felt that the prayer book as a whole had too much overlap with the standard prayer book, saying that the Ruinous powers weren't innovative enough and weren't offering enough new concepts to excite players. That's a good point. It's just tough because in my opinion, I would like to see 2 new prayer books come out eventually. The next one can come out years from now. And that would be more skilling focused or just really utility, sort of like the Lunar prayer book. I see this more as like the ancient prayer book, almost where like you got the standard spell book, which is like the standard prayers. And now we got the ancient, which are just like super combat focused. So that's how I kind of see it. I agree that they are just very basic. It's hard to just come out with new prayers that aren't just going to totally break the game. You know what I mean? Like they're already trying to do some of that, but it seems like whenever they have like an idea for that, you know, there's a lot of counterpoints to it. It's so tough. Some of these, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say about prayers, what your guys' thoughts are on these points down below in the comments. Some of these are easy to tackle, while others are a little harder to tweak with ease. We want to take a moment to explain some of our thought process while putting together the initial proposal so that you can understand where we were coming from before answering the survey questions to help us land on the same page. Our thinking. Before we get started here, we want to make it abundantly clear that we're not looking to dismiss any of your feedback or the points we've raised above. We believe everything that you've shared is valid, and we appreciate the feedback that you've shared and the passion that many of you have shown in your comments and responses so far. The aim of this section is solely to explain the approach that we took and why we proposed what we did. Whether the approach we took was right or wrong is entirely up to you. We hope that by providing you with this context, we might see feedback that tackles or challenges our rationale directly and on a deeper level than feedback for the specific prayers on offer. First of all, we need to take stock of things and appreciate how many things the regular prayer book achieves as is. We've got 100% in most scenarios damage reduction via protection prayers, strong offensive and defensive capabilities in piety, rigor, and augury, with slightly less strong offensive capabilities offered by augury. Huge PvP value provided by protect item and smite, and additional utilities offered both in and out of combat by prayers like redemption and preserve. By its very nature, up until this point, the regular prayer book does it all. All that to say that the Ruinous powers to hold, all that to say that for the Ruinous powers to hold up, there needs to be some overlap. Jesus, I'm struggling. Predominantly in the form of a strong damage mitigation via overhead protection prayers, damage prayers, which can keep pace with the likes of piety, and prayers that add some utility in PvP scenarios. It's no secret that when developing and designing content for Old School, we try to be cautious when it comes to power creep, since this is an issue that many of you are extremely passionate about. If power is to increase, players historically haven't wanted it to make older content entirely redundant. This is what gives rise to systems like Torva and Masori's upgrading, or pinnacle items like the Twisted Bow, Scythe of Viter, and Tumikin's Shadow being rare and expensive items with the status that befits their power. The best parallel for us to draw while thinking about the Ruinous powers is comparing them to spellbooks. Straight off of Tutorial Island, you gain access to the standard spellbook alongside the regular prayer book. As you progress your count, you gain access to ancient magics, lunar spells, or archaeus spells, each with their own unique identities and use cases, but none of them directly overshadowing the other in absolutely every scenario. With our initial proposal, we looked through community suggestions and pulled out what we felt were strong choices from popular suggestions to put together a design that has its own identity without leaving standard prayers in the dust. Something much like ancient magic is to the standard spellbook. A powerful and worthwhile unlock that's worth using in many scenarios, but not all. This is something we felt that Ancient Curses could have benefited from when they were released in 2009 by offering players the opportunity to make decisions and meaningful choices around where and how to use their newfound power, and something we were aiming to do with the Ruinous powers. On paper, our initial proposal featured 7% additional melee and range strength, 4% additional magic damage, up to 33% increased accuracy with all styles, and situational damage increases via Rebuke and Vindication where compared to the standard prayer book. The increase in DPS provided is massive compared to what you'd expect to see from a relatively obtainable reward, even when not making use of Gambit, Rebuke, or Vindication. With that in mind, for us to avoid having the Ruinous powers leave standard prayers in the dust, we had to give them some kind of drawback, and the only real remaining candidates was to reduce the effectiveness of protection prayers. Our reason for not offering 100% protection overheads initially was that if we'd included these, there's no reason to ever switch back to the standard prayers after having unlocked the Ruinous powers. And this is something we'd been trying to avoid. So I want to just reiterate my point on chip damage and what they can do instead of that. So if you have a prayer up, instead of it being, oh, this is 90% protection, just have it so that if you pray, let's just say you put up your range prayer protect, instead of it being 90%, it will be 100% protection. But if an incoming attack is melee or mage, then it deals 110% damage instead of just the normal hit. It'll actually deal 10% more damage to you because you prayed the wrong thing. Something where there is a downside to it, but it's not just when you're having perfect play, you're getting fucked up constantly. It would be if you have perfect play, you're still going to have that great 100% protection. But when you start making mistakes, it's going to start stacking on extra damage. So that's what I would personally suggest. I think that would be a way better thing than chip damage, to be honest. Let me know down in the comments. What's next? However, it looks as though many of you feel like the Ruinous power should supersede standard prayers and represent a turning point in your character's progression. While we're conscious that we want to avoid outright power creep with minimal input from players, I swear players and prayers are just constantly being interchanged. If the overwhelming desire from players is the Ruinous powers to fill this space at the top, then it's something we could explore. I've chopped like 2 logs. While it's clear to us there's a lot of room for improvement with this proposal, we're still planning to pull what we have so far to see whether some prayers show any particular promise. It's worth pointing out that this absolutely does not need to be the final list of prayers. Similar to the Heka ultimately becoming Tunic and Shadow, it's clear many of you want to see some more spice and variety, and we'll continue to think about and be on the lookout for additions or changes to share with you throughout the whole process. It's worth bearing in mind that the proposal and subsequent poll questions are for us to put these prayers into the beta so that you could try them out for yourselves. With something as complex as a whole new prayer book, we wouldn't be asking players to unlock them, players to lock them in without having hands-on experience. Any prayers that fail to reach beta will be replaced to have alternate designs pitched, since the ultimate point of community consultation and polling in this way is for us to avoid developing anything that's an absolute non-starter for you as players. Of course, a small amount of time has been spent on the initial design for us to have shared something with you, but not a single line of RuneScript gets written until we're sure it's something worth exploring further. With all that said, we've put together a very short survey containing a handful of questions we'd like to use to help us quantify where your collective heads are at. We'll use the feedback we've gathered so far alongside the survey responses to make some changes to the design tomorrow before polling on Wednesday. Depending on how the poll shakes out, we'll make some tweaks, substitutions, or additions as needed so that we wind up with a design you're happy with. A reminder that it's fine for things to fail these initial greenlight polls. It's exactly what they're there for. So if after some tweaks you're still absolutely not a fan of what's on offer, make sure to use the no vote and let us know exactly how you feel so that we can come back with something better in the near future. All right. So the rest of this I already covered in a previous ramble. Yeah, I am glad they're being so extremely transparent about this, and they really do paint it very clear that they are not dogmatic about like this needs to be in the game, and they've repeated that throughout past updates as well. I'm glad they do that because I remember there was a time when they were trying to get warding into the game, and it really felt like no matter what, they were just trying to push it in. So they're very aware and they're very transparent that, you know, whatever we want, we'll get. So we got to be very clear to them. I'll have this blog post linked down in the description so you guys can vote here or do the little survey. I'm going to do that as well after this. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. I agree with everything they're saying, and it's really tough. I've stated some of my opinions, the one I just said about the prayers, not doing chip damage, but just punishing you if you don't pray correctly. I think that's really the way to go about it. Yeah, it's tough. I know they're trying to push the low life on us. It makes sense, but yeah, it really will just start to feel like you just have to sort of camp low life at all times, which is kind of okay, I guess, but I don't know. It's so tough. Anyway, this is it, guys. Let me know down in the comments what your guys' thoughts are. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.